In this short video, I'm going to demonstrate Uttan Prasthasana, which is otherwise known as lizard pose. Lizard pose is a great posture for developing flexibility around the hip. So it's going to develop flexibility in gluteus maximus, but also in the adductor muscles on the inner thighs as well. And your client, is, if they have got limited mobility in the hamstrings too, they might feel quite a nice stretch in the top of the hamstring muscles as well as they come into the pelvis region. So quite often we've got more mobility on one side of the body than the other. So there's quite a few variations that we can do here depending on the ability of the practitioner. So lizard pose then. And we're going to start in our low lunge position. Okay, so make sure that your client is comfortable with their back knee. Okay, so if it's uncomfortable when they're on the mat, they can pop a little cushion underneath there or a small block underneath there, such as a half block. We do want a nice gap in between those feet, so we need enough space. But we ideally don't want this front leg to come too far out to the side, so we want the ankle in line with the hip as we move into the posture, in the same way as when we do low lunge. So we're starting from that low lunge position. Then from here, we're going to sink forwards. Now, essentially, both of these hands are going to come inside the leg. So we're working on bringing the shoulder down inside the knee. This might be enough at first for some of your clients, okay, or yourselves, depending on the amount of flexibility that, as we said, we've got in those adductors and around gluteus maximus and the hamstring area too. Okay, our next variation from here would be to start lowering down. So I'm going to just change my position so you can see from the side there. Okay, so again, I'm in that kneeling position, then I'm bringing that leg forwards as if I was going to go into low lunge. Then from here, sinking forwards, taking these hands down inside the leg. Then when I'm ready to start lowering, the first thing that we would do is take the outside hand down first. So the first adaptation here is to start lowering that outside forearm down. So this might be enough now for some clients. They might increase that stretch and really feeling it on the adductors. If they're comfortable, the next level from here would be to lower both forearms down onto that block. So we're still in our low lizard variation here, but we're gradually working on bringing these hands down towards the mat. Then once they're comfortable here, they no longer feel a stretch. The next level would be to lower the outside forearm down to the mat. And again, it might be that that outside forearm can go down to the mat, but the inside forearm still needs to stay on the block. That's absolutely fine. Okay, then over time, we can lower both forearms down to the mat. And this is our low lizard variation. Okay, so we've worked our way down over the weeks to get both forearms down onto the mat inside that leg. So just showing you from that alternative position, which is our low lizard. Okay, then moving into our high lizard, we would do the same thing. So we want to develop the flexibility in low lizard first, bringing those forearms down to the mat before lifting up on that back leg. Okay, so I'm going to come back into that low lizard position. Okay, so we've come into that low lunge. Hands have come down inside the leg, working with the blocks as we need to. So it could be that your client is comfortable with those forearms onto the block here, but they've got good flexibility in this back leg and they feel that they can lift up from here into that high lizard position. So from here, what we will do is press these hands together, flick up through those back toes, and we're lifting up into that high lizard position. So with high lizard, we're now trying to lift up onto the back toes and we're working on straightening that back leg. The front foot here, the front right foot is still pressing down into the mat, and this knee is not escaping too far away from the shoulder. Okay, then lowering back down as you then come out of that posture. Okay, for that high lizard variation. So I'm just going to show you on the other side so you can see the knee, because sometimes with people, the knee wants to creep out to the side when we're in that full posture. So we're just being mindful with this variation of lizard that the knee stays facing forwards. Okay, so from here again, we've come into that low lunge position, then taking those hands down, using the blocks if we need to, or lowering those forearms down to the mat. Again, be mindful here. This isn't dropping out to the side. This is staying in line with the shoulder and then flicking up through those back toes into that high lizard position. Again, pressing this front foot down into the mat and really working on stretching through that back leg. And again, working towards holding this for 4 to 5 breaths, or for further developmental stretching, we can hold it for longer, up to about 8 to 12 breaths if required. Then as we come out of this posture, press the hands down into the mat, soften that knee, and then you're bringing yourself back up into that start position and then onto the other side. So always making sure that you're doing both sides of the body, sinking forwards into that low lunge position. And again, working with the flexibility of the other hip as we sink down. So again, it might be here first of all, or we might be able to lower that outside forearm down either onto the block or onto the mat, or then working on both forearms coming down to the mat, staying in that low lizard position or lifting up into that high lizard position. And again, being mindful of the knee. Okay, so that was our lizard posture, which, as we mentioned, otherwise known as Uttan Pristhasana, which is a great posture for developing that mobility around the hip, especially in hip flexion and hip extension, and also opening up those adductors on the inner thighs.